जय हिंद यार बेली मित्रों। मैं कैप्टन एनजे सिंह एक बार फिर आपसे जुड़ा हूँ। आज हम बात करेंगे हाउ टू पिक अप अ गुड फ्लाइट स्कूल और द बेस्ट फ्लाइट स्कूल विच सूट्स यू। नाउ देर आर मेनी वीडियोज विच आर फ्लोटिंग अराउंड ऑन द नेट विच टॉक्स अबाउट विच इज द बेस्ट फ्लाइट स्कूल, बट that information is not complete because of two reasons. Firstly, any school which is considered best may not remain the best throughout, because every 3 months, 6 months, the situation changes and the school which was doing very well may not remain the a good school to go to. And secondly, it is personal perception. What I perceive probably is the best school may not be the best school for you. So what we are going to do, or what I am going to do, is that I'll tell you 10 parameters on which you should judge a flight school. Thereafter, take a decision where to go. Okay. In the second part of the video, I will tell you about how the foreign flight schools are different from the Indian flight schools and whether it is worth going there or not. So the first parameter which you should consider is that flight school is DGCA recognized or not. Most of the flight school as such are DGCA recognized. I will leave a link in the description box. Through that link you can reach that flight school. That will give you a lot of information. Not only that it is recognized by the DGCA, also the second part of, or second parameter, that how many aeroplanes it has. That site will tell you exactly the tail number of each aeroplane that the flight school has. So you will have a good idea that how many and which kind of aeroplanes that flight school is using for training. The also gives you whether it is a multi-engine aeroplane or a single engine aeroplane, because when it comes to training, both are important. Both have a role, that you require 185 hours on single engine and 15 hours on multi-engine to get a multi-engine endorsement and a DGCA on a DGCA CPL license. The third parameter would be how many students are there in the flight school. Now this information is very important, because if you come to the fourth parameter, is what is the ratio of the student to aeroplane, because this ratio will decide how much time a person will take to complete your training in the flight school. Now I'll just develop on this a little more, because this is a very important aspect. Now a normal person, a person who has no aviation background, a person who has just passed his exams, the DGCA exams, and wants to do his flying, he takes approximately 8 to 10 months to finish his flying. If it is less than 8 months, say about 6 months or something, the point is that at that stage, probably either he has to be totally dedicated and he is picking up things very fast, maybe he will to finish his training in 6 months, but an average student takes about 6 to 8 months. But in case it is more than 1 year, then I would rather call it is a training which is slightly delayed. And definitely if it is more than 1.5 years of flying training, then it's a delayed training. So anywhere between 6 months to 1.5 years is what the flying training is. A good time is 8 to 10 months. But if you are passing your exam along with it, definitely then the time period will increase. In that case, I would say about 1.5 years is a good time to finish your complete training, which includes when you are doing your exams also, and you have started absolutely raw and you finish your CPL. The next parameter, where is that flight school located? When I say where is the flight school located, because the weather at that place makes a lot of difference. Now there are places where the visibility is bad for, say, in the winter months, especially in the, say, northern part of India. So good about 2-3 months the flying is at a low key. That means the visibility does not reach 5 kilometers. You cannot do your flying. So invariably you find that you will be stuck for your flying training. Also, there are places, this I'll come separately when I come to the flying abroad. There are thunderstorms, or there are hurricanes, or there are other weather related phenomena which will reduce the flying at that stage, or stop the flying at that stage, which will increase the flying time. So weather plays an important role and you must consider it, especially if you are going abroad. The next important parameter, that is the A seventh parameter which comes is that what is the incident accident record of the flying school. Now, in case you find that for last 5 years there has been no incident accident, you can consider that flying school to be a good one, because ultimately safety comes first. If you are safe, then only probably you will be able to pursue the flying career. This record you can check it on the net also, probably on the DGCA site also, that in case of any incident accident of related to that flying school. The next important eighth parameter is you are not likely to be going close to most likely not going to close to a house or to a flying school, which means that there would be admin support required, whether it is boarding or lodging, and also transportation. Now this information is important because some flight schools have their own hostels. Some flight schools have their tie-up with in the civil, where they can people can go and hire the accommodation and they stay. So you have to check it, because some of the schools are in remote places where this may become an issue. The next important, or the ninth important issue is, does that flight school have a program wherein if you are doing well, or if you are interested, can you continue there as an instructor? Because flying jobs as of today are not hardly any available. So if you want to continue flying, and if you like that place and flying, you should have an option to continue and become an instructor there. Some of these points are very important when it comes to the second part of the video, which is the foreign schools. And the last point is, what is the level of training? Now there are a lot of information which I have given which may not be available readily on the net. So it is very important that you speak to somebody who is flying there at that moment when you want to go there, because that will give you a lot of information. Because for example, some schools claim that they have 7 or 8 aeroplanes, but practically they have 3 aeroplanes. Even on the DGCA site there may be 7 aeroplanes, because it is registered 7-8 aeroplanes. But for training they are using only 3 or 4 aeroplanes, because rest of the aeroplanes either not airworthy, or most of the time they are down, or they are not being used for training. So that information you will get only from a person who is actually there. Similarly, accommodation also, a person who is flying there will be able to tell you the true story, then to try and you can get some information from the net, but true story will come from the person who is there. Similarly, when I say level of training, all this paraphernalia or the parameters that I have talked about are good. It's one way of judging it, but the final judgment will come once you speak to a person who is flying there. What is the kind of training they have? Do they have instructors who are capable enough to actually good training, or is it that they're just logging 200 hours somehow and then giving you, okay, your 200 hours are over, go and get your CPL lessons? Because even if you get your CPL this way, by just somehow completing your 200 hours, the next step, which is getting into actually aviation job, there you will have problems, because the people will ask you in interview the question which you would have actually practically flown, then only you will be able to answer. So it's very important that you must talk to people who are actually flying at that place, so as to have a complete and holistic information of all the 10 parameters I have just talked about. Now, this is the first part of the video. The second part I am going to talk about is the training in the foreign flight schools. Now, a lot of people go abroad, especially to the US, for their flying. Now there are pros and cons both. Let me discuss this part. The flying training abroad is slightly expensive than the Indian flight schools. Obviously, because you are going abroad, you will end up, because you have to pay in dollars. So you will find that the training is slightly expensive. However, there are many advantages which will probably put you ahead of others who are getting trained locally. The first thing is infrastructure. Now US is the hub of flying, so you find that their infrastructure is much better. Their schedules, their the other paraphernalia to carry out the flying is much better than what probably you will find most of the in flying schools in India. The second thing is that When I say infrastructure, that includes whether you have the ILS available there or not, VRs available there, are you carrying out those approaches or not there. So this is which will make you better trained than many of the other schools or local schools. Okay, third parameter I want to cover is that in US there are two types of schools. That is schools which are under Part 61, and there are some schools which are under Part 141. Now the schools Part 61 are basically schools which are more lenient. That means they are there to complete your flying hours and training, whereas Part 141 are the schools which are more closely monitored by FFA. That is the authority in US which supervise those schools. So they have a more strict schedule and the parameters on which they are measured. That is the only difference. Otherwise you can do flying in either 61 or 141, does not make too much of a difference. But the difference practically comes in is that 141 will have more number of instructors and examiners, because availability of instructor and examiner is very important. Because even in the flying schools of India also, you will find that if the instructor and examiner is not there, your progress will slow down. Because if you are progressing to the next phase, especially the initial part, you need instructors to teach you. If the instructor is not there, your pace slows down. And later on, to pass and finally complete your license, you need examiners. So if you do not have examiners, again you will get stuck, because in case the examiner have to come from somewhere else, from other flight school or from somewhere else, then you find that as and when he time, then only he will come. Whereas if the school itself has the examiners, you find they can do it faster. So if you are going for US or for foreign schools, do check how many examiners and students, examiners and the instructors they have. This holds good for the Indian schools also. The next is, most important is, you are very far away from home. So that means the admin support becomes a big issue. What is the crime rate there? What is the admin support the school provides? So these are the important things which you find that are probably overweighing than many of the other parameters which you look forward into an Indian school. So the admin support, please go into little more detail. Take help of some player or some agency which can provide you these facilities. Like I have shown it, True Aviation is one of them who are into this. They will probably provide you a guide you. You can contact them. They will provide you free guidance about how to go about it. If you like them, of course, you can take their services. The last point, which is very important again for the foreign schools, is that does the school have wherewithal to fulfill the paper requirement of DGCA? That means whatever is the DGCA requires as far as to finish or to provide your proof as your having done your training. If the school is aware of it, you will find that the DGCA process will be much smoother. However, in case there is a problem in the paper action, if you might have done the amount of flying that is required, you might have done everything, but if on paper it is not correct, you'll find you have a lot of problems in the DGCA to get your license. So if that school is aware of the DGCA requirement, you will find that that's definitely a better school to go than to a place which says that everything is fine, but they are not aware of the DGCA paper requirements. So definitely look into this aspect before you decide on the flight school. So with this video, I hope I have provided you the required information as far as the flying training is concerned, both in India and abroad. However, in case you have more questions, or in case you have any problem or any doubts, or you want advice to how to go about it, you can either contact me or you can contact Cruise Aviation. They are more than willing to help you in this. So with that, thank you.